A millionaire saves a homeless woman who is unjustly arrested, but is forced to take her home and is shocked to discover who she really is. Before we dive into the story, comment below and let me know what city you're watching from. Enjoy the story. Sarah was a young woman with tangled hair and worn-out clothes who lived on the streets. That afternoon, while searching for scraps of food at a local market, chaos erupted. Shouts rang out as a purse was stolen, and Sarah, confused and unaware of what was happening, suddenly found herself surrounded by accusations. "It was her. I saw her," yelled a woman, pointing at Sarah. "I swear, I didn't do anything," Sarah pleaded, her voice shaking. But the police, used to similar situations, took her away without asking too many questions. At the police station, Sarah felt the weight of judgmental stares as she waited to be called in. Across the room, Noah Collins, a renowned psychiatrist, was there to support a friend during a deposition. He couldn't help but notice the young woman curled up in a corner, her eyes full of fear and shame. Something about her bothered him. Not in a bad way, but as though there was a story no one cared to hear. When Sarah was finally called, her trembling voice tried desperately to explain that she had nothing to do with the theft. But the situation seemed hopeless, until Noah, driven by an unexpected impulse, stood up. "Excuse me, can I speak to the officer in charge?" he asked firmly. Reluctantly, the officer allowed Noah to step in. He argued that there was no solid evidence against Sarah, and that accusing her without proof was unfair. Still, the solution seemed far off. "If you want to keep her out of jail, sir, you'll have to take full responsibility for her," the officer said, almost as a challenge. To everyone's surprise, Noah agreed. Sarah, confused and suspicious, followed Noah to his car. The drive to his house was silent, her mind full of questions. Why would someone like him help her? When they arrived at Noah's home, Sarah was stunned by the elegance of the place. But before she could feel even a hint of comfort, she was met by Noah's mother-in-law, Elizabeth Montenegro. Her sharp eyes scanned Sarah from head to toe, her face twisting into a look of disdain. "Who is this girl? What is she doing here?" Elizabeth asked with obvious contempt. Noah tried to explain the situation, but Elizabeth didn't hide her disapproval. "This is an insult to my daughter's memory," she declared, storming out of the room. Sarah felt the heavy weight of judgment, but Noah approached her and said in a reassuring tone, "Don't worry, you're safe here, at least for now." As kind as his words were, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that her presence would cause more problems than solutions. The morning sun lit up the simple guest room where Sarah had spent the night. Though the space was comfortable, she couldn't relax. Noah's help had been unexpected, but Elizabeth's hostility loomed over her like a shadow. Heading down to the kitchen, Sarah overheard whispers in the hallway. Elizabeth was speaking sharply to one of the maids. "I don't know what Noah's thinking. Bringing someone like her here? It's unacceptable. This will ruin our reputation." Sarah took a deep breath, trying to ignore what she'd heard. She didn't want to cause more trouble for Noah. But the tension was unbearable. Noah, on the other hand, seemed determined to help her. During meals, he gently asked questions, trying to learn more about Sarah's past. Reluctantly, she revealed small pieces of her story. A difficult childhood, the early loss of her parents, and years spent wandering the streets. "Have you ever thought about rebuilding your life?" he asked one morning as they had coffee on the porch. Sarah hesitated. "Rebuild what, doctor? I never had a life to begin with." Her words hit Noah harder than he expected. In her, he saw more than just pain. He saw potential, something she didn't yet recognize in herself. But not everyone shared Noah's perspective. Elizabeth, still furious about Sarah's presence, made no effort to hide her disdain. Hurtful comments and judgmental glares were constant, making the house an increasingly toxic environment. Realizing the toll it was taking on Sarah, Noah decided to confront Elizabeth. In a direct conversation, he urged her to show more tolerance. "She isn't to blame for what happened to my wife," he said, keeping his voice calm. "This isn't about blame, Noah. It's about respect. That girl doesn't belong in our world." Elizabeth snapped, leaving the room in anger. Tired of the endless tension, Noah began to consider other options. He knew the house wasn't a healthy environment for Sarah and started looking for a place where she could live away from Elizabeth's cruelty. On a rainy afternoon, he made his decision known. "Sarah, I'm going to take you to an old friend of mine's house." There you'll be able to find a little more peace, he said, trying to sound optimistic. Sarah stayed silent. Part of her wanted to accept, but another part feared what she would find in this new place. "Are you sending me away?" she asked, her eyes full of insecurity. "It's not that," Noah replied firmly. "I want you to have a space where you can feel safe, and I promise I'll be around whenever you need me." Noah's words brought a momentary sense of relief, but Sarah's heart was still uneasy. Olivia's house was an old two-story building, filled with heavy furniture and an atmosphere weighed down by a formality Sarah wasn't used to. As soon as she arrived, she felt the weight of the residents' evaluating stares. Olivia, a middle-aged woman with a rigid posture, greeted Sarah with a formal smile, but her voice was cold. "You'll stay in the maid's room, next to the laundry. I expect you to be discreet and not cause any trouble," she said, with a tone that made it clear Sarah's presence was more an obligation than a choice. Sarah nodded silently, too timid to reply. She knew that, despite everything, this place was better than the streets, at least for now. The following days were difficult. The house's residents, Olivia's relatives who shared the space, were cold and distant. Whispers echoed through the hallways, sharp words that Sarah pretended not to hear. "She's just a homeless girl. Why did Aunt Olivia take her in? It must be one of Noah's whims. He's always been eccentric." Even with the hardships, Sarah clung to Noah's promise. He would visit regularly, and he did. Every 2 or 3 days, Noah showed up to check on Sarah, bringing not just supplies, but also his reassuring presence. "How are you settling in?" he asked during one of his visits. Sarah hesitated before answering. "Things aren't easy here, but I'm trying." Noah sensed there was more to her words than she let on. During their sessions in the living room, always under Olivia's suspicious gaze, he began to explore her thoughts and feelings. Gradually, Sarah started to open up more. She talked about her days on the streets, the disgusted looks from people, and how she had learned to harden her heart to survive. But she also spoke about the fear that this hardened shell would make her unable to trust or connect with anyone. "You're much stronger than you think," Noah said calmly but firmly. "That's easy to say when you haven't lived like I have," Sarah replied, her voice carrying a mix of pain and defiance. These conversations not only helped Sarah, but they also awakened something in Noah. He began to admire her courage, the way she kept fighting even when everything seemed to be against her. Still, living with Olivia and her family was becoming unbearable. Once, while Sarah was washing dishes, one of Olivia's nieces entered the kitchen and, with a look full of disdain, intentionally dropped a glass on the floor. "Clean that up," she ordered, leaving before Sarah could respond. Sarah knelt to pick up the shards, feeling tears threaten to fall. But instead of crying, she took a deep breath and remembered Noah's words. She refused to give in to their cruelty. On his next visit, Noah noticed something different about Sarah. She looked visibly more worn down, but still forced herself to smile. During their session, the truth slipped out. "They don't like me," she admitted. "They make it clear I'm not welcome." Noah was silent for a moment, feeling a wave of indignation rise inside him. "You don't have to go through this alone," he said with determination. Despite Noah's efforts to support her, the situation in Olivia's house continued to worsen. Sarah clung to the strength she found in Noah's visits, but began to wonder how much longer she could endure. For Noah, something else was happening. He couldn't ignore how he felt when he was around Sarah. It wasn't just admiration or compassion, it was something deeper, more complex. And Sarah, though afraid to open up to anyone, felt a connection to Noah like she had never experienced before. For the first time, it felt like someone was truly willing to protect her. One afternoon, as Noah was preparing to leave after another visit, Sarah called out to him. "Dr. Collins." She stopped, hesitating. "You can call me Noah," he said with an encouraging smile. She smiled shyly and finished, "Thank you for everything." The exchange of looks between them was brief but intense. Something was changing between them, something neither of them dared to name. The wind blew strongly that night as Sarah curled up in the small room of Olivia's house. The days there had turned into a routine of silence and resignation. The looks of disdain and cruel remarks seemed to grow each day, slowly chipping away at her confidence. That afternoon, as Sarah was scrubbing the living room floor, Olivia walked by with a critical stare. "Make sure everything is spotless, Sarah. I'm not hosting you for free," she said, her tone cutting like a knife. Sarah just nodded, fighting back the humiliation, but inside she felt on the verge of breaking. When Noah came for his usual visit, Sarah tried to keep her composure, but something about her look caught his attention. He noticed the deep circles under her eyes and the way she hunched, as if trying to carry an invisible weight. "Sarah, are you okay?" he asked, his voice full of concern. She hesitated. Part of her wanted to say she was fine, but the truth felt like a wound that needed to be exposed. With a trembling sigh, she began to speak. "They don't want me here, Noah," she admitted. "They make sure I know that every single day. Olivia and the others, they treat me like I'm a burden, like I don't belong." Her voice shook, but she went on. "I try, I really do, but nothing seems good enough for them." Noah's eyes narrowed as anger built inside him over what Sarah was going through. He stood up abruptly, his jaw tight, and looked at her with determination. "This won't go on," he said firmly. That same night, he spoke to Olivia, trying to understand how things had gotten to this point. But the conversation quickly turned into a confrontation. "She doesn't belong here, Noah," Olivia declared. "You can't save everyone." "It's not about saving Olivia. It's about treating someone with dignity," he replied before walking out and heading back to Sarah. Noah entered the small room where Sarah was, looking resolved. "Pack your things. You're coming with me." Sarah's eyes widened in surprise. "But what about Olivia and your house?" "It doesn't matter what they think. You don't have to put up with this," Noah said, his tone steady. The next day, Sarah was back at Noah's house, but her return wasn't without its own difficulties. The moment Elizabeth saw Sarah walk in, her eyebrows shot up in disapproval. "Her again? Noah, have you completely lost your mind?" "Elizabeth, this isn't your business," he replied curtly, ignoring his mother-in-law's complaints. The tension in the house was heavy, but Noah did everything he could to make Sarah feel welcomed. He set up a room for her and spent more time listening to her stories, trying to help her find some relief. Days began to pass with a new rhythm. Noah and Sarah started sharing small moments that went beyond formal talks. He found himself smiling at her stories about surviving on the streets, amazed at the strength and intelligence she had shown even in the toughest situations. Sarah, on her part, felt safer than she ever had. There was something about Noah that made her let her guard down, allowing herself for the first time to trust someone. One night, as they sat on the porch looking at the stars, Sarah spoke softly. "I never imagined someone like you existed." "Like me?" Noah asked, curious. "Someone who looks at me as if I'm more than just a girl from the streets," she said, turning her gaze away. Noah stayed quiet for a moment, letting her words sink in. He leaned slightly toward her, his eyes fixed on hers. "You're so much more than you think, Sarah. So much more than anyone can see at first glance." Those words stayed with her. Sarah started to realize that, no matter how much she tried to deny it, she was feeling drawn to Noah. But that feeling scared her. He was so different from her, so far out of her reach. On the other side, Noah was also struggling with his feelings. Sarah had become more than just a responsibility to him. She was someone he wanted to be with, someone who gave him a sense of purpose he hadn't felt since his wife's death. But the doubts and barriers between them were undeniable. Sarah still carried the weight of prejudice and insecurity, while Noah questioned whether it was right to become emotionally involved with someone he had originally meant to protect. Still, in that shared moment of silence, they both knew something had changed. And although neither had the courage to say it, the bond between them was now stronger than ever. The days passed at Noah's mansion in a calm routine, but the tension between Sarah and her past never fully disappeared. Despite being surrounded by comfort and security, something inside her still connected her to the streets, to the life she had left behind. That afternoon, while tending to the garden, Sarah heard someone calling her name. She turned quickly and saw Lucia, an old friend from her difficult days on the streets. The woman was smiling broadly, running over to hug her. "Sarah, I knew it was you. I can't believe you're living here." Sarah hugged her back, emotional. It was like a piece of her past was standing right in front of her. "How did you find me?" she asked, still surprised. By chance. I was just passing by when I saw you in the garden. My God, you look different, but you're still the same Sarah I know, Lucia replied, laughing. The two chatted briefly until Lucia mentioned something. Listen, we're having a party tonight. The old friends from the streets will be there. I know you've been gone for a while, but it would be amazing if you could come. Everyone misses you. Sarah smiled. I'd love to see all of you. Where will it be? In a warehouse near the station. It'll be simple, but full of fun, just like the old days. For a moment, Sarah felt a wave of nostalgia. The thought of seeing her old friends filled her with joy, but also hesitation. She knew Noah probably wouldn't approve. I'll try, Lucia. Thanks for letting me know, Sarah said before saying goodbye. Later, Sarah found in the library where he was reading a book. Noah, can I talk to you? He looked up, giving her his full attention. A friend of mine, Lucia, came here today. She invited me to a party with some friends from the time I lived on the streets. I'd like to go see them. Noah's expression changed immediately. He closed the book and took a deep breath. Sarah, that's not a good idea, he said seriously. Why not? They're my friends, Noah. They always were. I don't see any problem with it. You're trying to build a new life. You can't cling to the past like this, he replied, his voice full of concern. I'm not clinging to the past. I just want to see them, Sarah insisted. Noah shook his head. Sarah, you're under my care now. I don't want you putting yourself in situations that could harm you. Before she could argue, he stood up, ending the conversation. Don't go. It's for your own good, he said before leaving for his room. Sarah stood in the middle of the room, feeling a mix of frustration and sadness. Elizabeth, who had heard the entire conversation, appeared in the room pretending to smile kindly. Sarah, dear, I heard what Noah said. Isn't it arrogant of him to try to decide everything for you? Sarah hesitated. He only wants what's best for me. Best? No, he just wants to control you. You have the right to enjoy yourself. Go to the party, Sarah. He'll never know, Elizabeth encouraged her, her voice sweet and calculating. Sarah, still torn, eventually gave in. Do you really think I should go? Absolutely. You're not anyone's prisoner, Elizabeth concluded before leaving. Convinced, Sarah changed clothes and slipped out through the back door, her heart racing but determined to see her friends. The party was lively. Makeshift lights lit up the warehouse, and the sound of laughter echoed through the space. Sarah was warmly welcomed by Lucia and other friends, who surrounded her with hugs and nostalgic stories. For a few hours, she managed to forget everything. She laughed, talked, and felt a freedom she hadn't experienced in a long time. But her attention was drawn to Marco, a friendly man who approached and started talking to her. So you're the famous Sarah? Lucia's talked a lot about you, he said with a friendly smile. Sarah smiled back, but kept a bit of distance. Something about the way he looked at her made her uncomfortable. Outside, Noah parked his car. He had searched the house for Sarah, and when he realized she wasn't there, worry quickly turned to frustration. When he entered the warehouse, his eyes immediately found Sarah, who was talking to Marco. Noah felt a surge of jealousy. He crossed the room, ignoring the curious looks, and firmly took Sarah's hand. You're coming with me. Now, he said in a tone that left no room for argument. Sarah tried to resist, but Noah pulled her out of the party, leaving everyone around them silent and surprised. Back at the mansion, Sarah was furious. As soon as they entered, she turned to Noah, her eyes blazing with anger. How dare you treat me like that? I'm not your prisoner. Noah, still agitated, ran a hand through his hair, trying to calm down. I told you not to go. That's not a place for you. A place for me, she shouted. You don't have the right to decide where I should or shouldn't be. Those people are my friends, my family, the only ones who have truly stood by my side. And me? What do you think I'm trying to do? Noah exploded, his voice full of frustration. Sarah opened her mouth to respond, but before she could say anything, Noah grabbed her arms and kissed her. The kiss was intense, unexpected, and for a moment, the world seemed to stop. Sarah froze, unable to react. When Noah pulled back, his eyes were locked on hers. I don't know when it happened, but I fell in love with you, Sarah, he confessed, his voice now low and full of emotion. Sarah felt her heart race. She knew she felt something for him too, but the fear of giving in to such a deep feeling scared her. Noah, I don't know what to say, she replied, stepping back. He placed a hand on her face, caressing her gently. "You don't have to say anything right now, Sarah. I just want you to know how I feel." She looked away, fighting back tears. Despite the kiss, the weight of her past and her fear of getting hurt again were still too strong to ignore. The following days were filled with silence between them, but also deep reflection. Sarah avoided Noah while he tried to give her the space she needed to process what had happened. Until one night, Noah decided it was time to act. He prepared a special dinner, his heart full of anxiety. The evening started calmly, with casual conversation, but as the night wore on, Sarah noticed Noah had grown more serious. When they finished dessert, he took a deep breath and called her. "Sarah, can we talk for a bit in the living room?" She nodded, curious, and followed him to the armchair near the fireplace. Noah looked hesitant, but his eyes were fixed on hers. "Since the day I met you, my life has changed," he began. "What started as just trying to help turned into something I never expected. You've shown me a strength I didn't even know I had, and somehow you brought back something I thought I'd lost forever. Hope." Sarah listened in silence, her heart pounding. "I know our story isn't typical, and maybe you think this is crazy," Noah continued, kneeling in front of her. He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket and opened it, revealing a simple yet elegant ring. "Sarah, I want to be by your side, through every moment, the good and the bad. Will you marry me?" The words took her completely by surprise. For a moment, she just stared at him, unable to process what was happening. Then, tears started streaming down her face. "Do you really want this? I mean, with me?" she asked, still in disbelief. Noah smiled. "I've never been so sure about anything in my life." With her heart overflowing with emotion, Sarah finally smiled and said, "Yes, Noah. I'll marry you." The relief and joy on Noah's face were impossible to hide. He slipped the ring onto her finger and pulled her into a hug, feeling like he had taken a giant step toward a new life. The days that followed were filled with wedding preparations. Despite some criticism from Elizabeth, who believed the marriage was a mistake, Noah was determined. He made sure every detail was perfect. Sarah, on the other hand, felt like she was in a dream. She had never imagined that someone like Noah could see her as so special. But along with the joy came a subtle fear. What if this was all temporary? The wedding day was simple, but full of emotion. Sarah wore a modest dress, but her happiness radiated, making her look like the most beautiful person in the world to Noah. As they exchanged vows, he held her hand tightly, promising to love and protect her. After the ceremony, they left for a honeymoon at a secluded countryside cottage. Noah wanted them to have time alone, away from any distractions. Let's play a little game for those who read the comments. Type pizza in the comments. Only those who made it this far will understand. Now let's get back to the story. The first days were pure happiness. They laughed together, cooked side by side, and walked through the fields at sunset. Sarah felt like she could finally breathe, but a part of her still carried the weight of her past. One night, as they sat on the porch, Noah asked, "Sarah, is there something you've never told me?" She looked at him, hesitating. "My past? It's not pretty, Noah. There are things I'd rather forget." "I'm not here to judge you, Sarah," he said, taking her hand. "But if you want to share, I'll be here to listen." Sarah took a deep breath, feeling like she couldn't hold it in any longer. She began to speak, hesitant at first, but the words started to pour out like a flood. The emotional abuse she suffered as a child, the loneliness of the streets, the betrayal of people she thought she could trust. "I spent years running from who I was, Noah, trying to be invisible to the world, but at the same time, fighting to survive," she said, her eyes brimming with tears. Noah listened silently, taking in every word. When she finished, he stepped closer and placed a hand gently on her face. "I can't change what happened to you, but I promise I'll stand by you for whatever comes next," he said, with a sincerity that broke through her defenses. Sarah smiled, feeling a mix of relief and fear. Despite Noah's words, the ghost of her past still haunted her. Sarah and Noah's honeymoon had been almost perfect so far. They had found moments of peace and happiness, away from everything and everyone, in the secluded country house Noah had carefully chosen. For the first time, Sarah felt like she could imagine a future with someone, but at the same time, she carried a constant fear that her happiness would be taken away. One afternoon, While Noah was outside gathering firewood, Sarah decided to explore the house. She loved going through the shelves full of books and old documents. In the study, an unlocked drawer caught her attention. It held a pile of papers and envelopes, many of them related to Noah's work. In the middle of the documents, a folded yellowed paper stood out. When she opened it, Sarah felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. It was a legal report from years ago. The official heading mentioned a civil case involving a car accident. As she read the cold words of the document, Sarah's hands began to tremble. The report detailed that Noah had caused a car accident while driving distracted. The document stated that the crash had been fatal for a man and a woman who died in the hospital. The third victim, a young girl, survived but spent months hospitalized. Then the names on the document hit her like a wave. Roberto and Elena Santos, her parents. The report indicated that Noah, in an effort to make amends, had paid all the young survivors' medical and hospital expenses. Sarah felt her chest tighten, remembering how, after leaving the hospital, she'd been thrown onto the streets with no one to turn to. Her parents were gone, and she had no choice but to learn to survive on her own. Reading those names and discovering that Noah was responsible for that tragedy was like reliving all the pain she had buried for so many years. Noah walked into the study moments later, carrying a pile of books he intended to reorganize. As soon as he saw Sarah's expression and the document in her hands, he stopped in his tracks. "Sarah, what's wrong?" he asked, placing the books on the table. She looked up, her eyes now filled with tears, clutching the document tightly. Her voice came out shaky, full of pain. "Did you do this?" Noah frowned, confused, until he realized what she was holding. The color drained from his face. "Sarah, let me explain." "You hit my parents with your car," she interrupted, her voice almost breaking. "You killed them. And I spent years living on the streets because of it." "Sarah, I didn't know," Noah started, but she wouldn't listen. "You knew what you did. You knew you destroyed a family. How could you go on living your life like nothing happened, while mine was ruined?" Noah took a step toward her, but Sarah stepped back. "I was young. I didn't know how to deal with what had happened," he said, his voice full of regret. "Young? That's your excuse? You didn't do anything but pay some hospital bills while I lost everything." "I thought I was helping," Noah insisted, his voice trembling. "Sarah, I never knew it was you. If I had, I would have done more. I would have—" "Done what, Noah? You can't bring my parents back," she shouted, tears streaming down her face now. "I'm so sorry. If I could change what happened, I would," he said, his own voice breaking. Sarah stared at him for a long moment. "Sorry won't change anything. You were the last person I ever expected to hurt me again. And now, everything I felt for you, it all feels like a lie." That night, Sarah could hardly sleep. While Noah stayed downstairs trying to give her space, her mind was in turmoil. She remembered the accident, the sirens, the screams, and the emptiness of waking up in the hospital and realizing her parents were gone. No matter how much Noah said he didn't know, she couldn't look at him without reliving that traumatic moment. At dawn, Sarah made a decision. Quietly, she began packing a small suitcase with her clothes. Before leaving, she placed the engagement ring on the bedroom dresser. With tears in her eyes, she wrote a short note. "I can't stay. I need time to deal with all of this. Don't look for me." With the note in hand, she left the house before Noah could wake up. When Noah found the ring and the note, his heart sank. He felt powerless, lost, and the weight of the past seemed heavier than ever. But he knew one thing: he wouldn't give up on her, no matter how hard it was. The cold wind stung Sarah's face as she stepped off the bus in a small, unfamiliar town. The silence and calm of the place sharply contrasted with the storm she carried in her heart. After days of aimless traveling, she had finally arrived somewhere she believed she could start over. As she walked through the narrow streets, she noticed a simple house with a small, well-kept garden. Sitting on the porch was an elderly woman with white hair and kind eyes, watching the world around her. Exhaustion was written all over Sarah's face, and she hesitated for a moment before approaching. "Excuse me," Sarah said softly. "I'm looking for a place to stay. I don't have much money, but I can work." The woman smiled warmly, without a hint of judgment in her gaze. "Come, dear, come inside." "You look like you need a good meal before anything else," she said, opening the door. The woman, who introduced herself as Amelia, served Sarah a bowl of hot soup and listened to her story while she ate. Sarah revealed only part of her past, mentioning a hard life on the streets and her desire to find a safe place to start again. She didn't talk about Noah or the recent trauma, but that didn't stop Amelia from noticing the pain Sarah carried. "You can stay here if you'd like," Amelia said after listening carefully. "I have an empty room, and I always need help with the garden and housework. I can't pay much, but I can offer shelter and company." Sarah felt a lump in her throat, overcome with emotion. "Thank you. You have no idea what this means to me." "We all need help at some point in life, dear," Amelia replied with a smile. The days passed in a calm and comforting rhythm. Sarah helped Amelia with the garden and house cleaning, slowly learning to take care of herself in an environment so different from what she was used to. Amelia's kindness was a relief, and Sarah began to feel that she had found a refuge. Despite this new sense of peace, Sarah began to notice changes in her body. The morning sickness, constant fatigue, and heightened emotions were signs she could no longer ignore. One day, while Amelia was at the market, Sarah decided to confirm her suspicions. Locked in the bathroom, she took a pregnancy test. When the positive result appeared, her legs almost gave way. She was pregnant with Noah's child. In the days that followed, Sarah experienced a whirlwind of emotions. The joy of carrying a new life mixed with confusion and fear of facing this moment alone. She thought of Noah and the love she still felt for him. But the pain and hurt from what she had discovered made it impossible to imagine him being part of that future. Amelia noticed Sarah's change. Always attentive, she approached her gently. "You've been different, dear. Do you want to talk about what's bothering you?" she asked as they watered the garden together. Sarah couldn't hold back her tears anymore. I'm pregnant, Amelia," she confessed, her voice trembling. Amelia looked at her in surprise, but her expression quickly softened into a warm smile. "Oh, my dear, why does that worry you so much?" "Because the father doesn't know. And I don't know if I'm ready for this," Sarah replied, trying to hold back her sobs. Amelia gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "A child never comes at the perfect time, but you have a strong heart, Sarah. I can see it in you. No matter what comes your way, you'll find the strength to face it." Sarah wiped her tears, feeling a renewed strength from Amelia's words. Deep down, the woman was exactly what she needed at that moment, a maternal figure who offered calm and courage. As the days passed, Sarah began to consider what to do next. She knew the small town where they were wasn't isolated enough. If Noah wanted to find her, he could. So she decided she needed to go somewhere even farther away. One evening, she finally told Amelia, "I need to leave. I need to go somewhere no one can find me." "I don't want my child to grow up afraid of the past," Sarah said as she folded her few clothes. Amelia, however, replied firmly, "If you're going, then I'm going with you." Sarah was surprised, staring at Amelia with teary eyes. "You don't have to do this. This is my responsibility, my fight." "Sweetheart, your fight is our fight now. You're pregnant. I'm not going to let you face this alone." "I'll go wherever you go," Amelia said, with a determination that made Sarah feel more supported than ever before. Amelia's words touched Sarah's heart deeply. She'd never had anyone willing to do for her what Amelia was prepared to do. To Sarah, Amelia was more than a friend, she was a mother. The next morning, the two began packing up for the move. Amelia managed to find someone with an old pickup truck to help, and they loaded up the few belongings they had. Before they left, Sarah stopped in front of the small house that had been her refuge for the past few weeks. Despite the uncertainty of what lay ahead, she felt a renewed strength within herself. Holding Amelia's hand, she climbed into the truck. "No matter where we go, Sarah, we're going to be okay." "I promise," Amelia said, squeezing her hand gently. As the truck rolled down the dirt road, Sarah felt, for the first time, that she wasn't facing the world alone. The small town where Sarah and Amelia settled looked like something out of a hand-painted picture. Simple houses, dusty dirt roads, and green hills surrounded the area, bringing a peace Sarah never thought she'd experience. Amelia found a small cottage for them to share, where they split the responsibilities and tried to create a calm, steady routine. Even with the exhaustion from her pregnancy and the recent changes, Sarah began to feel more stable. Amelia, always by her side, did everything she could to ease Sarah's worries and make sure she had a safe place to start over. One day, while shopping at the local market, Sarah noticed a man watching her from a distance. He seemed familiar with everyone, greeting the vendors and helping people carry their bags. When their eyes met, he gave her a friendly smile. "Hi, can I help you with that?" he asked, pointing to the bag of fruit Sarah was carrying. Sarah hesitated but answered with a small smile. "Thank you, but I think I've got it." "You don't have to be so independent. Let me help," he insisted, grabbing the bag before she could refuse. As they walked through the market together, he introduced himself as Elias, a local who worked in construction. Sarah, reluctant to share much about herself, only told him she'd recently arrived and was trying to adjust. "Well, if you need anything, you can find me easily. Everyone here knows each other," Elias said, waving goodbye. In the following days, Sarah kept running into Elias around town. He always seemed willing to help her, offering to carry her groceries or fix something at the cottage. Amelia, who noticed Elias's interest, encouraged Sarah to open up a little. "He seems like a good man, sweetheart. Maybe he's someone who can help you feel safer here," Amelia said one night as they sipped tea. Sarah, however, remained cautious. Despite Elias's kindness, she knew her past was far too complicated to share with anyone. Meanwhile, Noah was desperate. Since Sarah had left, he had been searching for her tirelessly. He hired investigators, traveled to different towns, and revisited places she'd mentioned in conversations, but no clues had surfaced. Each day without news was torture for him. He spent hours staring at the ring Sarah had left behind, replaying the moments they'd shared. The guilt over what had happened and the emptiness of her absence consumed Noah, but he refused to give up. One sunny afternoon, while Sarah was working in the garden, she heard someone call her from the gate. It was Elias, holding a bouquet of flowers. "I thought these might brighten your day," he said, smiling. Sarah was surprised but accepted the flowers gratefully. "Thank you, Elias. You didn't have to do this." "It's no trouble at all. Just a way to show that I like seeing you around," he replied, his tone light but full of sincerity. Despite the simplicity of the gesture, Sarah felt uneasy. As much as she was beginning to enjoy Elias's presence, she knew she couldn't return his feelings without being honest about her past. Amelia noticed Sarah's internal struggle and decided to bring it up that night. "Sweetheart, Elias seems like a good man, but I can see you're holding back. What's keeping you from moving forward?" she asked while folding clothes in their small room. "I can't tell him about my past, and even if I could, I don't think he'd understand," Sarah replied, her voice full of uncertainty. "You don't have to share everything right now, but you also can't completely shut people out. Don't forget that you deserve to be happy, Sarah," said Amelia, placing a hand on her shoulder. Amelia's words stayed with Sarah in the days that followed. Elias kept visiting her, helping with small repairs around the cottage, and bringing simple gifts, like fresh fruit or wildflowers. His presence was comforting, but it also made her question how much she should open up to him. One evening, as they walked through the town square after a fair, Elias finally broke the silence. "Sarah, I like you, and I know you're going through something, but I want you to know I'm here if you need someone." Sarah stopped, looking at him with a mix of gratitude and sadness. "Elias, you're a good man, but there's so much about my life you don't know, things that aren't easy to explain." He smiled gently. "I'm not asking for explanations. I just want you to know I'm here, no matter what you've been through." His words touched her, but they also weighed heavily on her heart. Sarah knew she couldn't hide the truth forever, but she also feared that revealing everything would push Elias away and bring more complications into her life. As they walked back to the cottage, Sarah felt the weight of the decision she needed to make. After a few weeks, Sarah slowly began to open up to Elias. On a sunny afternoon, while they were working together in the garden, she finally decided to share the truth about her pregnancy and her past. "Elias, I need to tell you something," Sarah began, her voice hesitant. He put down the hoe and turned to her, his expression always warm. "Of course, Sarah, you can tell me anything." She took a deep breath before continuing. "I'm pregnant, and the father of my child, He was someone very important to me, but things between us ended painfully. Elias remained silent, encouraging her to go on. He caused a lot of pain in my life, even if it wasn't on purpose. After discovering some things, I just couldn't stay. I decided to leave and protect my child. I thought it would be better that way. Elias listened carefully, not interrupting her. Since I came here, you've been so kind to me, but I don't want you to have false hopes. My life is far too complicated to involve someone else. For a moment, Elias just looked at Sarah, his expression hard to read. Finally, he spoke. Sarah, I'm not here to judge you or your past. I just want to stand by you and help whatever you decide. You don't have to carry this burden alone. Elias's words moved Sarah deeply. As much as she wanted to accept his support without hesitation, she knew her story was too complicated to allow that. As the months passed, Elias became an essential part of Sarah's daily life. He helped her prepare for the baby, fixed things around the cottage, and always brought something to brighten her day, whether it was a bouquet of wildflowers or fresh fruit. Amelia, who watched everything unfold closely, encouraged Sarah to trust him more. Elias is a good man, dear. He has the right heart for someone like you. Maybe he's exactly what you need, she said one evening while knitting tiny baby booties. Sarah just smiled, but deep down, she knew Elias deserved far more than she could offer. The big day came on a spring morning. After hours of labor, Sarah gave birth to a healthy baby boy with bright eyes that seemed to hold all the love in the world. Amelia held the baby first, overcome with emotion, before handing him to Sarah. He's perfect, Amelia whispered, tears in her eyes. Elias, who had been anxiously waiting outside, came into the room when he was allowed. Seeing the baby, he was visibly moved. He stepped forward slowly, holding the little one carefully, his eyes shining with happiness. He's beautiful, Sarah, Elias said, his voice unsteady. In that moment, overwhelmed with emotion, Elias knelt by Sarah's bedside, holding her hand. Sarah, I want to take care of you and this boy. I want to be a family. Let me stand by your side, no matter what happens. Marry me, he asked, his voice full of sincerity. Sarah's heart tightened. Elias's words were everything anyone could hope to hear, but she knew she couldn't accept them. Elias, you're an incredible man. The best I've ever known, Sarah began, feeling tears well up. But I can't do this to you. My heart is still torn between so many things. You deserve someone who can love you fully without holding back. And I can't be that person. Elias lowered his head, clearly disappointed, but he tried to hide his pain. I understand, Sarah. But know that I'm still here, if you ever need anything. Sarah felt her chest tighten even more. As grateful as she was for Elias's support, she knew she had to make a decision to avoid hurting him further. A few days later, as she rocked the baby and watched Elias talking with Amelia, Sarah realized that staying there would only cause more pain for everyone. That night, she sat down with Amelia and shared her decision. Amelia, I think it would be better if we went back to your old house. Elias has been wonderful, but I can't stay here. He deserves more than I can give. Amelia, who had already sensed Sarah's tension, nodded. I understand, my dear. And you're right. We can't live in a place where someone's heart might get hurt without meaning to. With Amelia's support, Sarah began packing her things, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. On the morning they left, Elias showed up to say goodbye. He didn't ask questions or try to stop them. He just hugged Sarah and kissed the baby's forehead tenderly. You'll always have a place here, no matter where you are, he said, forcing a smile. Thank you, Elias, for everything, Sarah replied, tears streaming down her face. As the truck pulled away from the small town, Sarah looked back to see Elias waving one last time. She knew she was doing the right thing, but the emptiness in her chest was hard to ignore. When they arrived at Amelia's old house, Sarah felt a mix of nostalgia and relief. It was as if a chapter was closing, preparing her to face whatever came next. The days at Amelia's house brought Sarah a false sense of peace. Her son was her joy, a little miracle who made her smile even in moments of exhaustion or uncertainty. Amelia was always by her side, helping with the baby and offering the maternal support Sarah had never experienced before. But despite the calm, the weight of the past still haunted her. Noah remained in her memories, and the baby, with those familiar eyes, was a constant reminder of the man she had left behind. Every time she thought of him, a mix of longing and pain washed over her. That afternoon, the sun shone gently as Sarah tended to the flowers in the garden. The baby slept peacefully in a makeshift crib under the shade of the porch, and Amelia was in the kitchen, humming as she prepared dinner. And then Sarah heard a voice. "Sarah?" The sound made her heart stop for a second. The gardening tool slipped from her hand, and she froze. It couldn't be. It was impossible. Turning slowly, her eyes met Noah's, standing just a few feet away. His expression was a mix of relief and disbelief. He looked tired, with an unshaven face and eyes heavy with emotion, but he was still Noah. "Noah," she whispered, the shock clear in her voice. Noah walked toward her, his steps slow, as if he was afraid she might disappear again. Then he saw the baby in the crib. He stopped halfway, his heart pounding. "Is that my son?" The question came out almost as a whisper, filled with emotion. Sarah felt her heart race. As much as she knew this moment would come, nothing could have prepared her for the intensity in his gaze. She clenched her fists, her breathing heavy. "No," she said quickly, looking away. Noah frowned, as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Sarah, look at me and say that again. Tell me he's not my son." "He's not yours, Noah," she insisted, her voice trembling but firm. Noah stepped closer, his expression now filled with anger and hurt. "Do you think I'm an idiot? Do you think I can't see it? He's my son, isn't he? Why are you lying to me?" Sarah picked up the baby, holding him protectively, as if he might be ripped from her arms. "I'm not lying. Go away, Noah. This has nothing to do with you anymore." Her words cut through Noah like a knife. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "So that's it? You've moved on? You found someone else? While I haven't been able to stop thinking about you for a single second." Sarah felt her face burn at his words. "Don't talk like you know what I've been through. You weren't there. You don't know what it's like to carry everything alone." "I wasn't there because you ran," Noah shouted, his eyes shining with pain. "You left without giving me a chance, without letting me explain. And now you look me in the eye and lie? You say he's not my son?" Sarah felt the tears stream down her face, but she held his gaze. "I did what was best, and I already told you, he's not your son." Noah took a step back, as if her words were a blow. He laughed without humor and shook his head. "Then maybe you didn't love me as much as I thought. Because if you had, it wouldn't have been so easy for you to get involved with someone else." The accusation made Sarah's stomach turn. She looked at him, incredulous. "How can you say that? You have no idea what you're talking about. All I know is that you disappeared while I looked for you like a madman. I didn't want another woman. I just wanted you. And now you treat me like I'm a stranger." The intensity of the confrontation left both of them in silence for a moment, and Sarah finally felt she couldn't take it anymore. Clutching the baby to her chest, she turned and walked toward the door. "Go away, Noah. Please." He didn't move, just watched her cross the porch and go inside. When she firmly shut the door, Noah felt a deep emptiness growing inside him. For a moment, he stood still, hoping she might come back, that maybe she'd say she was lying, but the silence remained. Inside the house, Sarah sat on the couch with tears streaming down her face. Amelia appeared in the room, and seeing Sarah's state, she rushed to her side. "He's gone," Sarah whispered, drained. Amelia hugged her as she quietly sobbed. "You did what you thought was right, my dear. But running and lying won't heal the pain you're feeling." Sarah just shook her head, holding the baby even tighter. Outside, Noah walked slowly to his car. He glanced back at the house one last time, hoping to see some sign of movement, but nothing happened. Climbing into the car, he slammed the door shut in frustration and rubbed his face with his hands. "She didn't love me," he murmured to himself, his voice shaky. "She's moved on." He started the car and drove away, believing that Sarah was telling the truth, that the baby wasn't his. But despite what she said, something inside him still couldn't fully accept it. The days following the reunion were a whirlwind in Sarah's life. The confrontation with Noah had reopened wounds she thought were buried, and his words continued to echo in her mind. Despite denying that the baby was his, the intensity of the emotions Noah stirred made Sarah question her decisions. Let's have a little fun with those who only read the comments. Type Coca-Cola in the comments. Only those who get this far will understand. Now let's continue the story. Amelia kept a close eye on Sarah's restlessness, and although she didn't push, she knew something needed to be resolved. "Dear, sometimes the heart needs time to process what the mind can't explain," she said one morning, gently rocking the baby. Sarah just sighed, lost in her thoughts. Meanwhile, Noah was determined to confront her again. Although he initially believed the baby wasn't his, something inside him couldn't accept it. He wasn't sure what he'd do or say, but he knew he had to see her again. That afternoon, he returned to Amelia's house. He parked the car and saw Sarah heading out to the market. He called out to her before she could disappear. "Sarah, wait!" She stopped, took a deep breath and turned around. The expression on her face was one of exhaustion and irritation. "Noah, what do you want now? I've already made it clear that there's nothing left to say." He approached her, trying to stay calm. "Do you think you can just push me away? Tell me the baby isn't mine and expect me to accept it without question." "I need answers, Sarah." "I already gave you answers," she replied, her voice tense. "No, you gave me lies," Noah shot back. "And even if the baby isn't mine, I need to know why you decided to erase me from your life like this without letting me explain." Sarah felt her chest tighten. "Because I needed peace, Noah, and I couldn't take the pain anymore, and you brought more pain than I could handle." Her words hit him hard, but Noah didn't back down. "I know I made mistakes. I know I hurt you. But I never stopped thinking about you, Sarah. I never stopped loving you." She shook her head, looking away. "That doesn't change the past." As they argued, a car sped down the street. Distracted by the conversation, Sarah took a step toward the road. Noah saw the danger before she did and, on impulse, grabbed her arm and yanked her back with force. The car passed within inches of her, honking loudly as it sped away. Sarah's heart was racing, and her eyes were wide with shock. Noah still held her arm, his face pale. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice low but full of concern. She nodded, still breathless. Yes, I'm fine." He let go of her arm gently, but his eyes stayed fixed on hers. "Sarah, I can't lose you again. It doesn't matter if this baby is mine or not. I want to be here for you, for him. I want to build a life with you." Noah's words hit her hard. She could see the sincerity in his eyes, the desperation in his voice. He looked just as vulnerable as she felt, just as lost in his own feelings. "Noah, you don't understand." "It's not that simple," she said, her voice trembling. "I know it's not simple," he replied. "But what we have has never been simple, and that doesn't change the fact that I love you. And I'll care for your child as if he were mine, because to me, he is. I want to be the family you need, Sarah. Please, let me prove that." His words broke something inside Sarah. What she had been trying to deny all this time started to fall apart. Despite the pain, the hurt, and the walls she had built, she knew she still loved Noah. "Are you really willing to do all of this?" she asked softly. "More than you can imagine," he answered. Sarah took a deep breath, trying to process everything. Part of her was still afraid, still wanting to run, but another part, a stronger part now, wanted to believe his words. I need time," she finally said. Noah nodded, respecting her hesitation. "I'll give you all the time you need, but I won't give up on you." In the days that followed, Noah started making small changes to show how serious he was. He helped Amelia with chores around the house, brought simple gifts for the baby, and was always nearby, but he never pressured Sarah. As much as she tried to keep her guard up, Sarah couldn't ignore the change in Noah. He was different. More patient, more willing to listen and understand. And little by little, she began to let him back into her life. The days that followed were a whirlwind for Sarah. Noah's constant presence in her life and the patience with which he handled her and the baby made her question all of her choices. He was there every day, never asking for anything, just showing with quiet gestures that he was willing to be part of her life. But even with the walls starting to crumble, there was something Sarah couldn't ignore. Fear. She had kept the truth hidden for so long because, deep down, she believed Noah might try to take the baby away from her. That night, while Amelia rocked the baby to sleep, Sarah finally found the courage. With her heart racing, she stepped outside and found Noah sitting on the small bench in the garden, lost in thought. The moonlight lit up his face, revealing the calm yet melancholy expression she knew so well. "Noah," she called hesitantly. He looked up, and when he saw her, a small smile appeared on his lips. Sarah, is everything okay? She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the words she needed to say. I have to tell you something I should have said a long time ago. Noah sat up straighter on the bench, his eyes now locked on hers. I'm listening, he said, his voice calm but full of expectation. Sarah sat down beside him, but she couldn't look him in the eyes. Instead, she stared at the sky, searching for the strength to continue. Noah, I lied to you, she began, her throat tightening. The baby, he's your son. The words hung in the air for what felt like an eternity. Noah stayed silent, his gaze searching her face for confirmation. He's my son? He asked, his voice low and full of emotion. Sarah finally looked up, tears starting to roll down her face. Yes, he's yours. He always was. Noah blinked a few times, trying to process what he had just heard. Why did you lie to me, Sarah? Why did you push me away like that? Her heart ached. Because I was scared, Noah. Scared you'd try to take him from me. I know you have resources, that you could get anything you wanted, and after everything that happened between us, I didn't know if I could trust you. The pain on Noah's face was clear. He ran a hand over his face, trying to control the emotions boiling inside him. You thought I'd do that? That I'd take your son, our son, away from you? I didn't know what to think, Sarah whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. I just wanted to protect him. I couldn't risk losing the one little piece of happiness I have. Noah was silent for a moment, but his expression softened as he looked at her. Sarah, I would never do that. Never. You're his mother, and he needs you just as much as I do. I just want to be here by your side. I want to be the father he deserves. She stared at him, finally seeing the sincerity in his words. And how can I be sure you won't hurt me again? Noah took her hands, holding them gently. I know I made mistakes. I know I did things that hurt you and made you doubt me. But I've changed, Sarah, and I want to prove that to you every single day. I want to build a life with you and our son. It doesn't matter what happened in the past. What matters is what we can build together now. Tears streamed down Sarah's face, but this time they were tears of relief. She felt a weight lifted off her chest, as if she could finally breathe after so long. In the days that followed, Noah dedicated himself completely to proving his words. He helped with the baby, brought simple gifts, and was always around, but never pressured Sarah. Every small gesture was filled with a sincerity she couldn't ignore. Little by little, Sarah began to believe him. The man standing in front of her now wasn't the same Noah she'd known in the past. He had changed, more patient, more humble, and willing to face his own mistakes. One night, as Noah held the sleeping baby in his arms, Sarah watched him from the doorway, feeling a tightness in her heart. The sight was so simple, yet so powerful. He looked up and saw her there, smiling shyly. I never imagined I'd hold something so precious in my hands, he murmured, looking at the baby tenderly. He gave me a reason to be a better man. You both did. Sarah slowly approached, sitting next to him. You really are willing to do this, aren't you? To be part of our lives? Noah nodded, looking into her eyes. More than anything in the world, I love you, Sarah. And I love this little angel we brought into the world. I want to care for you, protect you, not because it's my obligation, but because it's what my heart desires. His words touched something deep inside Sarah. For the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to believe that happiness could be possible again. A few weeks later, Noah made the request that would change everything. He had prepared a simple dinner in the garden, decorating the place with soft lights and Sarah's favorite flowers. When she arrived, he took her hand and led her to the table. Sarah, I'm not perfect, far from it. But I love you, and I love our son. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, building something real. Will you marry me again? Tears filled Sarah's eyes, but this time they were tears of joy. Yes, Noah, I will. The wedding was held in Amelia's small garden. The sun shone softly, and Sarah's favorite flowers were everywhere. Amelia, who had been Sarah's biggest supporter during the hardest times, watched her with tears of happiness. Noah stood at the makeshift altar, unable to take his eyes off Sarah as she walked toward him, wearing a simple white dress that seemed to radiate her purity and strength. At that moment, all the conflicts and hurt from the past seemed to fade away. When they exchanged vows, both promised to love, protect, and support each other, no matter what life brought their way. I promise to be the man that you and our son deserve, Noah said, his voice steady but full of emotion. And I promise to trust you and leave the past behind, so we can build something new together, Sarah replied, her eyes shining. When the kiss sealed their marriage, everyone applauded. But for Sarah and Noah, it felt like there was no one else in the world, only them and the little baby who was now the center of their lives. Epilogue: The future. A few months later, Sarah, Noah, and the baby were on the porch of their new home, watching the sunset. Noah held the baby in his arms while Sarah leaned against him, finally feeling at peace. I never thought I'd feel this way, Sarah murmured. Noah kissed her forehead softly. We deserve this happiness, Sarah. We fought for it. And as they watched the horizon, Sarah knew they had left the past behind. Together, as a family, they were ready to face whatever the future might bring. Do you think Sarah did the right thing by forgiving Noah? Share your opinion in the comments. How would you rate this story on a scale from 0 to 10? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to follow all of our stories. And be sure to check out more touching stories by clicking here on the final screen.